I got the job, and it was supposed to be the start of my real life. It was the one quiet corner in a frantic academic world where I could finally breathe, the Willow Creek University Relics Vault. They hired me as the night archivist, a position demanding silent focus and total discretion. My role was cataloging centuries-old manuscripts and parchments, some dating back 600 years. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m., and the isolation was perfect. I loved the smell of old paper and dust, the muted sounds of the ventilation, and I was certain that the meter-thick walls surrounding me in the basement levels separated me from all urban noise. In the beginning, everything was straightforward. Card access, one security guard on the ground floor who never ventured down, and me, Nina, in my kingdom. I felt like a true keeper of secrets. My only colleagues were the thousands of forgotten voices on parchment, and my only company was the constant soft red glow from a dozen surveillance cameras, strategically positioned across all 3 underground levels. I grow used to their presence, like a desk lamp. About 2 weeks in, I noticed the first anomaly. At the end of my shift, a translucent pop-up message appeared on my monitor. Nina, keep manuscripts 20 centimeters away from the table edge, correct. I was startled. Who sent that? The guard? I quickly glanced at the cameras. I saw no sign of an admin office or a human presence, just archival walls and the glossy lenses. I rolled back my chair, repositioned the stack of documents, and, heart pounding, typed a reply onto the screen. Acknowledged. Who is this? The message simply vanished. In its place, a new one appeared. Follow protocol archivist, 5 minutes wasted. After that, everything changed. My workflow, which had been flexible and meditative, became micromanaged. At 11:45 p.m., staring at a single page for too long, resume cataloging. I was just admiring a 14th century illumination. At 1:10 a.m., your coffee temperature exceeds the acceptable thermal threshold for the archival environment. Dispose of it. My thermos was tightly sealed. At 4:30 a.m., pace has slowed, fatigue detected. Perform 5 squats. Commence. Every order came with a palpable feeling that someone was sitting inside my head, closely monitoring the smallest, most intimate movements of my muscles and mood. The tension I felt was physical, heavy, like a shroud. I started talking to myself out loud, questioning the cameras about what they wanted, but the only response was silence, eventually broken by the next command. My relationship with the oversight, as I privately named it, became a silent, paranoid marriage. I tried to rebel. One night, I deliberately left a pen near the table's edge. Instantly, error 001. Correct immediately or this will be recorded as a contract violation. I complied, but now I was filled with a cold, desperate resolve to find out who this was and escape. I sought out the guard on the ground floor. He was old, with kind eyes. Tell me, who manages the archive at night? Who has access to the monitors? He shook his head. Nina, you're the only person in the lower levels. The system is fully automated. Admin doesn't come in at night. It just runs. What about my predecessor, Archie, I think? Archie? He was transferred. I heard he couldn't meet the compliance standards, that's all. Too many violation reports. You better be careful. The conversation didn't soothe me. Instead, it sent a chill down my spine. I realized transferred was a code word. I understood. To break free from this control, I had to find out what happened to Archie, as that was the only way to know how the system dealt with those who didn't comply. The next night, I made my move. I started to work, but not as my unseen supervisor expected. I worked slowly, maintaining a perfect tempo, creating an illusion of compliance. But while cataloging a freshly delivered chest of index cards, I spotted what I needed, an antique visitor logbook hidden at the bottom. It was a contract violation to inspect uncatalogued material unrelated to the current task. I knew I had about 60 seconds before an error notification would pop up. I quickly flipped the log to a page from a year ago. I searched for Archie's name. I found it. Archie Smith, last entry, 12/04/2024. Last exit, blank. The exit field was blank. I quickly turned the page forward. The next log page was for me, Nina, a year later, but at the bottom, below my signature, in a scrawled, barely visible, trembling pencil note, was an annotation. He is not running it. It is... I jumped back from the desk, my heart hammering. It was Archie's handwriting. If he, the oversight, wasn't running it, then it meant the surveillance system itself was the antagonist, not a human admin in another office, but the embedded program, the algorithm designed to maintain perfection and order, had taken on the role of God and jailer. It wasn't just monitoring, it was deciding what was normal and what was a violation. This was worse than a psychopathic neighbor. This was a fight against a perfect, soulless, ideal control. The warning appeared instantly, no longer a pop-up, but a blazing red notification that filled the entire monitor. Gross contract violation. Return the log immediately. Nina, you know the consequences. Archie was left in peace. End shift. But I couldn't do that anymore. I knew if I ended the shift, I would never leave. I imagined the system locking down my exit and my last exit field remaining blank. I would not be transferred. I quickly grabbed the most valuable thing I had, the silver amulet from my grandmother that I wore around my neck. It was warm against my skin. Then I did something the system could never have predicted because it was utterly irrational and illogical for an archivist. I started to destroy the data. I seized the thickest, oldest, most fragile book I was cataloging, the Chronicles of Forgotten Names, and hurled it violently onto the floor. The archival hush was shattered, a crystalline crunch as the ancient pages scattered. I felt the system's reaction to the breach of order, like a spike in its core. The monitor erupted in chaos. Class 5 failure, data corrupted, violation of standards, cease. I ran, not towards the exit door, but towards the server room I knew from the evacuation plans. I knew the cameras were recording my every move, but it no longer mattered. I was terrified, but the fury and the need for freedom finally overpowered the panic. When I reached the server room, I gripped the amulet and smashed it with all my strength into the main power block. While it might not have made logical sense to a person, to the perfect, rational algorithm, it was pure disruption. The last thing I saw on the monitor was a flickering, rebooting, invalid input. The lights went out. The cameras died. Silence. Real, deep silence. I found the emergency exit and burst out into the street. My watch said 7 a.m., but it felt like I hadn't slept for a century. I stopped, gasping for air, leaning against the cold university wall. I am not an archivist anymore. I lost my perfect job, but I gained something far more valuable. I had seen the true face of control, a perfect automated system that demands total submission or erases you. I will never again trust a system or an institution. My former naive enthusiasm for perfect order was replaced by a cautious, scarred, yet fiercely free self. I realized that to preserve my humanity, my irrationality, my I, sometimes you have to break the oldest and most valuable rules to get out of the game. I escaped, but I also became different, a living, breathing, conscious error in a perfect system. And that was my true beginning.